the webinar today really, I've changed just a fraction from originally just using the disc, because I really wanted to emphasize the FinxS Sales Competence Report. And I've just been over in Melbourne training that, and I really felt like while it was fresh and everyone is very interested, it would be a very good idea to incorporate it into the sales webinar. So we're going to be having a look at selling using a little bit of disc and the FinxS Sales Competence Report that's brand new out from HR Profiling. So some salespeople obviously do well, some struggle, some have good weeks, then bad months. You know, selling works best when salespeople understand its process. It's a process that has to change to fit the product. You know, obviously you don't sell a retail item like you sell a complicated software program. The more any sales manager or any salesperson can see behind the process, the more that they can control the sale. And of course, the more that they can develop. Understanding the skills that drive a sale is absolute key. So simply put, if you can understand the buyer in a clear, concise way and understand your own competencies better, you can then measure the issues that make up that process with more assurance. Then you can manage the process of development so much better. So this short webinar touches on new processes from us, from everything from understanding to measuring and then managing certain sales skills, obviously to a deeper level than ever before. So let's take a look. You know, let's keep it simple. Here's a stylized view of the sales process. I know that you're all very familiar with the 6 or 7 steps that are the usual that we see. But what I'm going to do today is just keep it nice and simple and just manage the 3. So any face-to-face meeting, email or phone call, there are always at least 3 aspects to our communication. 1, the initial establishing of rapport, intelligence and empathy. That's the section that moves the seller from the salesperson really to almost like a consultant. The second one, the second section is basically hopefully interactive. These are things like your clever questions. These are answers. These are suggestions. These are trial closes. These are things like more learning and uncovering the real needs issues. And the third we're going to look at is the section 3 is advancing the sale. It's about closing it. It's about the next steps and of course the agreed action or follow-ups. These are all part of the process. Then there's the ability to speed read the buyer at a constant rate. Strong directional buyers just get annoyed with too much detail. Detailed buyers think sellers are pushy if they skirt around that very same detail, especially if they're too quick at it. So the ability to speed read yourself is just as important. So let's have a quick look at the next slide. So typically when you're using DISC, there's these 4 steps and we're pretty good with these by now. Firstly, understanding that people do have different styles. Some are direct, some are more chatty, some sit quietly and observe and watch others, and some of course need detail and time to process. So secondly, the self-awareness. The best salespeople know their own style, which type they are naturally. Then they can adjust accordingly. People usually like to buy from people who are most like themselves. So thirdly, by looking at your own style and the buyer's style more specifically, it's much easier to assess how to adjust. We use things like observations, assessments, and then recognise where behaviours need to adapt. This is not always easy because sometimes you can be talking to someone who's your complete opposite, of course, and it does make it hard. But the more you observe, the more you're aware of your styles and product, well, I guess knowledge of the DISC styles, the easier it is. The last one is the ability to adapt, and it's obviously the clever selling is involved in this one here. So modifying the style to the sales, to the person you're talking to. So however, we each and all of us tend to emphasize a style, usually our natural. This can be classified in many ways, but here's a quick look at how we'll be recognizing some of the selling styles. You know, typically, as I said, there's no right or wrong style for selling in any DISC spectrum. but obviously every style prefers different things. If I have a look at, well, let's say I mention now the more traditional categories that we all tend to know, just so we can refresh ourselves, because we can look at these and see these in a bit more depth with the coming report that I'll be showing you. So obviously people like hunters that we know tend to be drawn to cold calling skills, new business, and are usually results driven. Farmers, these are more about relationship selling and collaborating, growing the business. Customer service salespeople are usually excellent at problem solving and upselling. They're excellent at listening and sorting out what to do next steps. And technical salespeople naturally depend on explanations, instructions, and detail. So with the new FinxS Sales Competence Report, we can go even further into understanding all of this. So let's have a quick look. Now, I'm very aware that some of you will have not have even seen this report before. So I just wanted to take a little bit of time to explain a little bit. We're going to have a look at a fair bit of detail information today and hopefully relate it back to some real practical tips on using it in sales. So the new FinxS competency process is not DISC-based. That's the first thing I just want to say, but it fits in with DISC if you need it to. So there is basically three reports, a development report, a hiring report, and what we call the Sales 18, which is very much fits with your behavioural DISC report. So there's three different reports. Today I'm going to be basically looking at two of them, the development and some of the information in the hiring report that is not DISC related. So you can have a little look on the screen on the slide there and have a little look of how it's based, and I'll carry on with the webinar. And as I say, if any questions as we get going through this, maybe hold them off and maybe have email me at the end, or maybe HR profiling at the end as well. So the new sales competency report indicates areas in which an individual may need specific development. The thing to note that this new sales competency report, again, is not based on DISC theory. So it's a completely different set of questions that are designed to deliver a result that can help strengthen and streamline sales development or learning. It takes around 20 minutes to complete, and there's 99 questions, forced questioned, paired questions that you need to go through. So the assessment identifies strengths and weaknesses in 18 critically important sales competencies, I should say. The competency assessment measures attitudes towards those behaviours as well as experience. So what does that mean? So for example, someone may understand how important a direct style close can be, but their own attitude in using it is actually not apparent. So they may understand it, but they haven't really experienced using it. And this can be captured. So practical coaching tips and development plans are also provided in the report, and they are dynamic depending on the person's result as well. So it goes further. The process gets right into salesperson's effectiveness. So in the background, this is what it actually is looking like when we put the sales competency towards sales effectiveness. First of all, a salesperson's natural predisposition to a skill. Secondly, it then captures a readout on that person's attitude, their thinking. The third one is then we look at just how competent that person is currently. So here's the thing. This report captures the current the thoughts and abilities, competencies and attitudes of the person. But of course, this can change. It can change with what's going on in the environment. It can change depending on the product or what the project the person is selling on. So the result, obviously, of going through these 99 questions that are taking into consideration these three things, the result is a clear indication of exact competencies that might need to be developed, as well as areas that can be developed that are matched with the type of sales the person is in. And that's really important. So importantly, it also reveals those aspects or what we call job roles that the person might find easier, as well as some that they might struggle with. And we'll have a look at this very shortly. So as a sales manager or consultant, you can then take this knowledge or these results and know how to go forward based on the results of the reports and the priorities you've defined. So in a nutshell, it's looking at these three different areas. It's capturing information for you as a manager or a consultant to really drill down on and have a look at where this person might need development or help. And that's very specifically aligned with what your product or your industry might be. So let's have a look at these 18 competencies. So as I said, there's 18 competencies that have been identified as part of the sales process and the sales aspects. You can see there that they cover critical issues like dealing with failure and handling objections, building rapport, typically that we know, presenting that we know is definitely part of sales. But there's also things like money concept and emotional involvement. Which has actually been changed to something a little different now. I have to come back to you on that one. And it's it's not a zero-sum game. So the result balances where someone might be extra strong in one of the 18 competencies. It means it may affect some of the other competencies if they are interrelated. So that also means that you have to be aware of how these competencies are made up. So this, as I say, it's a very in-depth report that can really finger point where you need to develop someone. So each of these particular competencies is behind the scenes made up of 2 to 4 mindsets as well. And looking at these specific mindsets, they affect the score. So I'm going to put this into sales terminology very soon too, so you can understand how it will help. So these are what we call the mindsets behind the scenes here. So first of all, mindsets make up the competency scores, and we do need to know what a mindset is. So sales mindsets are the way an individual identifies with their product and sales process, approaches solving sales problems and overcoming challenges. So mindsets can uncover self-defeating beliefs and attitudes, and also uncover obstacles to success in the sales as well. Here's the thing though, they are weighted, so not to confuse you, but let's say 2 or 3 of these make up one particular competency that we've just been talking about. One may have more weighting towards it. So as a sales developer myself, it's really important to know what is in the competencies that make it up. And of course, you don't need to worry, it's actually in the report. So the report drills down and down and down to very, very specific areas. And man, by now you can really start to understand how you can help a salesperson improve in particular areas that are specifically related to what you need. It's no use, giving someone huge amount of empathy when in actual fact they're just buying milk at the dairy, for example. They can have wonderful empathy and they can do it very quickly, but they don't need to have a long-term relationship, say. Or maybe they do. So it's sort of defining what kind of sales that you have. So when we use DISC, we know that typically some of the styles tend to be more predisposed to things like shorter sales cycles or maintaining a long-term relationship versus a short relationship. This is important when looking to develop aspects of sales of a salesperson and their current role. It's sometimes not practical, for example, to develop long-term relationship skills when in fact that person needs faster empathy, a short sales cycle, and potentially a short relationship. This is where the new tool can be so accurate. The new sales competency pinpoints these matches. We've got to be to be honest, it's got to be every manager's dream in looking at this, a system that can help target where to best concentrate attention and where not to waste time if the salesperson doesn't actually need that ability in this current role. So let me explain a little bit more. even better. So if you happen to be recruiting, for example, then the sales competency hiring report helps define this area and more. You'd think about your product in terms of needs, the cycle, and the relationship. To make it easier, these combinations actually get put together as what we call defined job roles, which I'll show you on the next page. So simply by defining these 3 sales models and looking at the job roles in their report, this can actually help you select the right or a better fit candidate as well, not just based on their DISC profile, but actually right down into their current assessment of how their abilities are coming through. So if you're buying, for example, a pair of shoes, you are likely to be fairly specific in what you like, what you need, and what you'll spend. That's what we call an expressed need. But what if your product was let's say, a customer service software? You know that many potential buyers don't know how good a customer management software system can help their business. They know that they need it, but they know very little about it. So that would be a latent need. They know they need something, but they don't know as yet quite what they're looking for. So in addition, the show salesman or the demonstrator needs to be polite and helpful, but it's unlikely a long-term relationship for them. It's not that long-term relationship's probably not going to be as critical as some of the other type of sales. I'm assuming they might be at the front end, but they might hand it off to someone else if there's any interest from people. So typically a demonstrator or a showman. However, the software salesperson may need many visits, clever presentation skills, to be able to sell at many levels with different people and constantly speed read the buyer with great competency. So you can start to see that measuring the potential candidate as to their skills in building short-term or long-term relationship, as well as things like the cycle and the relationship itself, can be a defining factor in who you might match for a good job fit. So again, the hiring report that is part of the sales competency takes these 3 models and different combinations and is able to assess the different needs, and they come out like on the next page where we have another thing called job roles. Let me show you these. So for me, again, as a sales developer or sales trainer, this kind of thing is pretty critical, because I'm not just hiring someone that might be good with empathy or that can promote themselves in a certain way, but I'm really starting to drill down on, is my product or does my product have latent need, expressed need? Is the product they're going to be selling short sales cycle or a long relationship, etc.? And by understanding what my product or service is actually needing, you can relate that back to what comes out in their report as these different job roles. You can see on the left that there's 8 different job roles in the advanced report, and they are very specific, and again they come out on the next page, which and verifies which they might be best at. So let me show you a little bit more about the job roles. As I said previously, you can see the matrix on the slide. You can see that there's needs, the sales cycle, and relationship. And the different combinations are the different job roles that you might need. So let's pick 2 examples. I know someone who recently purchased a top-of-the-range Volvo. It was a latent need, initially non-specific. It was a short sales cycle, 2 visits, but a short relationship as well. So therefore, that type of selling tends to be better towards the sales revealer type skill. So you can see there up the top on the slide, latent need, short sales cycle, short relationship. Equally, I also know someone who has recently sold a year's training as a sales director for that particular company. Their needs were specific, so very much expressed need. The sales cycle was long, many visits and slow development. The relationship was critical and long as well. A lot of built up trust and careful development over time. Therefore, the skills associated with that type of selling tended to be towards the sales partner. These are just two examples, but you can see how cleverly the product helps pinpoint the ideal candidate or development if that's required. So you can take this even further, and in their report, it spells it out for you. Here it is. So you don't have to necessarily work it out. You can turn to this particular page. I'm not going to dwell on this too much in the webinar, but here's a clear dashboard to summarize kind of what I've just been talking about, the competencies and, the job roles that are highlighted through the different combinations of those three sales models. So the report helps to define top roles that the person would find natural or potential roles that might need some development. You can see in the middle, and it also has marginal roles that the person can develop but may struggle and need longer to develop, if they even need it at all. So in this slide, it shows an existing skill or ability that this particular person has 82% match for a sales creator. And if you go back to that other page, you can see there a sales creator, typically latent need, short sales cycle, long relationship. So you can see also that this person has a lot of potential roles. In fact, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different potential roles that they could develop a lot more easily. And then there's also 2 marginal roles, and currently this person doesn't necessarily have any marginal roles. They tend to have a top role and a lot of potential roles. So just as important, it shows that if you needed a sales partner for your product, then this candidate may not be suitable without some sort of in-depth support or development in that area as well. So it's not that they may not be suitable, it's just a matter of knowing that actually that might be a marginal role for them, or that you need to put in a lot of support to help this person in that particular area. It's a great and easy page to use, and it basically spells it out for us. So when you're hiring, for example, this is a great page. You know exactly what the person's development needs might be. So, as I say, there's no right or wrong in selling. There's no right disc style. There's no necessarily right person right then and there. But with development, there can be. So, some styles suit a different product. Some styles of people suit a different cycle, long relationship cycle, short relationship. So the new FinxS competency sales and hiring report tends to point the finger right at an individual's development style to get the best fit, or determine that individual might easily develop into a best fit. In summary, it identifies issues very clearly so managers or individuals can see how a fit looks against a product need. It breaks skills right into base levels, so empathy, drive, follow-up, cold caller, attitude, experience, etc. The process prints out an easy to understand dashboard, and that dashboard basically is the report. In the report, there's lots of great summary pages, so you can go in depth as much as you need, or simply read the summary pages to help pinpoint the right sales development area. It goes even further. It also pinpoints mindsets, and that can be measured against competencies and evaluate clashes, strong points, and urgent needs to develop. Mindsets are really important to consider when looking at salesperson's competence and abilities. Every product or service has disciplines associated with needs, relationships, and cycles. This report evaluates how any salesperson might measure against that product or service or sales profile. So the effect of all this: selling is a discipline, it's a process. The more an individual can understand about their own style, the better it is. The styles of the people that they might be selling to is so critical, and the needs of the product or service profile has become critical now too. The tighter the fit, the tighter any training can be. So for that matter, the tighter any recruiting can be. So the new sales competency and the sales competency hiring report is a powerful tool and now available from FinxS that generates usable and highly valuable information for anyone that's involved with development or hiring, management, consultants, coaches, you name it. So if you haven't had the chance to see it or hear about it, then ask HR Profiling for a sample report and have a look for yourself. To be honest, I've been loving it, and there's just so much potential out there for using it. I've just grabbed a tiny little section today and just related it to a few little sales tips and tricks out there, but there's so much more to do. So I think maybe gradually we'll eat away at some more webinars that will help establish what it is. But by all means, go on to hrprofiling.solutions.com. They have some great information about what the new tool can do and a nice, easy way to understand it. So thanks everyone for joining me. I appreciate your time, especially short notice and on a Monday. And I'll see you back here in about another month anyway. And by that stage, I'll have this new Zoom program all sorted. So thanks, everyone. Bye for now.